Hi, and welcome to my studio, which is also my dining room. My name is Kristen, and I'm the artist behind Wicked Wreaths. In honor of Warner Brothers announcing a Practical Magic 2 film, I'm going to be giving away a Practical Magic inspired wreath to my Patreon members. For a chance to win this wreath, make sure to go join my coven over on Patreon. And please like and subscribe so I can do more projects like this and giveaways. The first thing I'm going to make is the Owen house. This will be the base of the wreath that the house is attached to. I'm going to draw a rough sketch of the house on this piece of wood. So let's get to it. And when I say a rough sketch, I mean I looked at the house and drew what I saw, and I had to erase many times. But that's okay, it's part of the process. Fun fact about the Owen house. It was actually just a set built for the film on the San Juan Islands in Washington. The set looked so real that even Barbra Streisand called and asked if she could buy the house, though the interior of the home was built in Los Angeles. I think all of us can agree with Barbara, and we all want to live there too. Now with the rough sketch done, I can move on to building the frame. Marking up pieces of craft wood for cutting. To cut this out, I usually use my scroll saw, which does require some safety gear. Wear your hearing protection and your face mask. Make sure to slide the little step thingy down so it holds the piece of wood in place so you don't lose anything important like your phalanges. And lightly sand the piece of wood, and to build it some sidewalls to make it 3D. That's what makes houses like this pop, giving it dimension. Now to make the porch roof, and secure everything down with hot glue. Now with the first structure in place, I'm going to do this like 30 more times. So I think we're gonna need a montage. Sorry, I could not help myself. Now with most of the structure done, I can measure out the windows and cut them out of plexiglass. Using a sharp razor blade, I score it a couple times and then break it on the edge of the table. And here I am checking the fit before I make some curtains. I glue one side, then I make pleats and glue as I go. Then of course attach the window to the inside of the frame. And then do that step over and over again until you have all the windows complete. Now it's time to add the lighting. I drilled holes through the back of the board for the lights to be fed through so that way I can glue them into place. I decided to paint the lights yellow so that way it gave more of a candle glow. And then repeated the step for all the windows in the house. If you're going to attempt this, remember not to hot glue directly onto the lights but onto the wire, and to take your time pulling the wire so you don't hurt it. I also did a rough sketch of the roof window and then cut it out and put it in place. And I didn't make a bunch of precise cuts because I knew I was going to be covering it with a lot more details later. With all the lighting in place, now I can add the rest of the roof pieces. Also adding this cool widow's walk and then its roof. Now with the structure of the house done, I can cover it with siding and shingles. These are pre-done shingles that I cut down to size and glued into place, row by row. I think we're gonna need another montage. Sorry, I promise that's the last time. With the roof finished, I moved on to the deck boards, which are just popsicle sticks. Now I black out where I want the bottom of the house to be, though I did figure out it was still a little bit too long, so I had to trim it down. Then I added the lattice over the black parts and started with the siding. Well, I know I promised, but we might need a... Oh, why do I feel like I'm rickrolling you? Day 957. No, I'm kidding. Now with most of the detail work done, I can start painting. Turning the house white reminds me of the house from Beetlejuice. That would be so fun to do. A couple of years ago, I made a sandworm from clay and I would love to do it again. I did initially paint the roof brown, but then I realized looking back at pictures, it was more of a gray. So here's my second coat in gray. And then I dry brush a lighter gray to give it texture. And then I put part of the porch together. I'll do the rest later when I attach it to the wreath. With the house mostly painted, now it's time to paint the background. I wanted the sky to look like the end of the movie when it's twilight, right before they jump off the roof. Spoiler alert! So as you can see, I did a couple different shades of blue, some gray, and pink to give this wonderful sunset look. And going back with a finer brush to do the details. I was really happy how the backdrop turned out. I 3D printed this greenhouse structure and cut it into pieces so it would fit flat against the board. Then I took a piece of foam, filled it with greenery, and put in plastic. Now we're ready to attach it. After many days and hours of work, I finally have the house done enough to put on the wreath. This is not my house. This is not my life. How did I get here? But seriously though, the house is not done, but it's done enough where I want to attach it to the wreath so I can do all the other little detail work. Obviously, it still needs ground, and I would love to put some trees and some vines going up the house and over on the porch, that way to make it very witchy feel. So let's keep going. To attach the board to the back of the wreath, I like to use zip ties. They're super durable and easy to use. Now I get to work on the ground. The ground is made out of floral foam board that I cut specifically to fit in that area. Use a razor blade to take off the sharp edges, and then cut another piece to fit the whole gap. Here I am making sure the foam fits before I do any more work to it. Now I take the foam out, spray it with adhesive, remove the plastic bag that's sticky, put it into a box, and then shake the flocking all over it. I do this so I can recover any of the materials that don't stick. Now to put the dry foam boards back in place. Now I'm going to make vines for the side of the house. I do this by taking twine and unraveling it slowly. Each strand will turn into a vine. Then I'll use that same spray adhesive to cover the strand. Then I'll add laser cut diorama leaves. Since they're laser cut, they actually look like little leaves instead of just clumps of green. After I waited for the vine to dry, now I'm attaching it to the side of the house. I like to take my time, lay it out, and slowly glue it down, and also clip off pieces that I don't like. And I can't forget to plant the herbs in the window box. Whenever you see the house in the movie, it always looks so green and lush. I really wanted to bring that same vibe to this house, which is why I made sure to add lots of vines and foliage, because the Owens are definitely garden witches. Another thing about the house in the movie is there's a white picket fence in the garden. So I'm going to add a vertical garden in the front of the house. This is sticking with the green lush vibe that I want to have. So I add a variety of different types of moss. I made the trees the same way I made the vines, I just used a different kind of foliage. Ever since I started thinking about making this piece, I wanted to make the pergola where Jimmy's grave was. I used a couple of popsicle sticks, painted it white, added the vines, and then the bush for the roses. For his grave, of course we need his brown leather shoes poking out from the grass. Definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie. After gluing them in place, I added some extra grass around his shoes to make him look more sunken in and more foliage around the sides. Now to make the roses. I flatten out a piece of clay and then roll it up slowly for the center, and then place petals around the sides. After the petals are in place, you can slowly fluff them out. And of course, we need a lot of them for the bush. Painting the roses red. We're painting the roses red. Seriously, on my bucket list to do an Alice in Wonderland piece. Then of course, placing the roses in the bush. I did forget to record myself making the hedge trimmers, but of course we needed it for Sally. Now with the house done, we can move on to other parts of the wreath. This was the rough draft that I made up in Photoshop of the things I wanted to include in the wreath. The next part I think I want to tackle is the broom circle. I found these straw broom sweepers, but they were not the correct size. So I pulled it apart and made brooms out of it. Then I cut the straw off and secured it back down with a zip tie, using twine to cover the black zip ties. I also used another kind of straw broom because I wanted to have variety. All I did here was replace the broom handles so they would be longer. I'm going to place them where I want them, but not secure them. That way I can make room for the other objects if I need to. That's a pretty good start. We're going to move on to making the belladonna. If you don't know, the belladonna is what Sally puts in Jimmy's drink. I found this jar and these dried flowers to give it a nice tincture feel. Then I found a label that I printed off from Etsy. I used sticker paper, cut it out, and then placed it on the jar. Now, because I'm a little bit extra, I wanted to make a charm out of this fluorite piece I found for the jar. A little about me, when I was 17, I learned how to make jewelry from my friend who owned a rock and bead shop. Then I did it for many years. Love you, Becca. For the tequila, I did the label just like the jar, but I didn't record myself putting a little bit of brown resin on the bottom. For the police badge, I just printed it out of my 3D printer, gave it a light sand and paint. I also 3D printed this margarita glass, which I filled with spray foam and painted green, which later I decided was too green and went back and repainted it, and put some hot glue on the sides and rolled it in some salt. Made this cute little lime out of clay, painted it, and now you have midnight margaritas. Again, I 3D printed this pan, took some parchment paper and some foam clay and made some cactus-shaped pancakes. I had to cut the shape and press it a couple of times to get it to look right. This pancake reminded me of the cookies from Squid Games. Then of course I painted it pancake colors. Now that's some tasty looking foam. The moon is another 3D print that I just have to give a light airbrushing to. If you've seen any of my other tutorials, you know that I absolutely love my spray foam. It makes the perfect adhesion to your objects while giving it a little bit of a cushion so it can still kind of take an impact. Though I'm not wearing gloves, you should wear gloves because this stuff is very sticky and will stay on your skin forever. It's still on my hands right now, 2 days later. When the foam fully dries, I like to pick off the excess. Just make sure you're being very gentle in this stage. There's no rush, and then you can pull off pieces pretty easily. Though for Jimmy's ring, I secured it with a pipe cleaner, that way the winner could take it off and wear it if they'd like. Now time to weave in the lights. This step is actually a lot more time consuming than you think. I think it took me 2 hours and then an hour to go back and paint everything black. And then I planted some lavender for good luck. Then I hot glue everything down. I love the Garden Witch vibes this is giving off, and I can't wait to show you in the reveal. As always, thank you so much to my Patreon coven. You are the magic that keeps this channel going. Shout out to my new witches and warlocks, Brandy Walker and Lindsay Lightfoot. And a shout out to my all-powerful archmages, Melissa Wood Fielden and Melissa Usher. Thank you so much for your support and your kindness. You all have entries into winning this wreath. Make sure to check out my Patreon for more details. Okay, love you, bye!